Good morning. Okay, I wasn't looking for a response, but nevertheless, good morning. I'm Bob Rubin, and on behalf of the Hamilton Project and all of my colleagues at the Hamilton Project, I welcome you to today's discussion, which is entitled Real Specifics, 15 Ways to Rethink the Federal Budget. This is part 2, which deals with entitlements, taxation, revenues. We did part 1 on Friday, which dealt with the defense budget. It was a remarkably robust discussion with the former chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, former head of naval operations, former director of the CIA, and others. Let me say a few words about the Hamilton Project before we get to today's program. We began about 6 years ago. A group of us who were very concerned about the direction of economic policy at the time came together with what we thought was a different idea, a different way of supporting policy development and serious economic discussion. And the idea, which to the best of my knowledge at least is unique, was to form not an institution but a small group, a partnership of policy experts, former government officials, academics, and business people organized in an advisory council. And then, in that context, to commission papers and to provide a forum for serious discussion on economic issues on a periodic basis. The Advisory Council has a wide range of experience, a broad array of views, and with that, I think has given the Hamilton Project a distinct and pragmatic perspective. We began by putting out a broad economic strategy paper. It was organized around the policy objectives of growth, widespread sharing the benefits of growth, economic security, and the belief that all three can reinforce each other. We strongly supported market-based economics, but we also and equally advocated a vital role for government to perform the functions that markets by their very nature will not perform. And since then, we've had a series of events on specific economic issues. We do not endorse proposals, but we do take the work product of our panels, such as today, and work intensely to bring that work product to the media and to government. When our events involve papers, they are subject to rigorous academic review. As all of us know, the American people have experienced great hardship and continue to experience great hardship, and it's been going on now for quite some time. And in that context, the Hamilton Project has had policy development or commissioned policy development in the area of stimulus, mortgage relief, and other areas. But our focus is long-term, at least for the most part, is long-term economic policy. We believe strongly that our country has enormous economic strengths, a dynamic and entrepreneurial culture, vast natural resources, flexible labor and capital markets, and much else. And that with that, we are well positioned to succeed over the longer term. However, in order to realize that potential, we also believe that 3 hugely consequential policy challenges must be met: a sound fiscal regime, strong public investment, and reform in areas that are key to our economy: immigration, healthcare costs, energy, and much else. There's broad agreement across the political spectrum that our country has an unsustainable and dangerous fiscal outlook. But once you get beyond that, as all of you know so well, there is wide disagreement about what to do and when to do it. These are complicated matters substantively, but a conservative economist, a well-known conservative economist, said to me recently, and I think rightly so, that the adherents of different views who are committed to effective governance and committed to its requisite, which is compromise, could bring this together and relatively readily arrive at a sound fiscal plan for the 10-year budget window that is currently at issue. However, as we all know, the politics are very difficult. As the usually counterproductive sequester, with its arbitrary allocation, with arbitrary cuts, and with its steep fiscal drag, so sharply demonstrates, the ultimate challenge for our economy is effective government, and the greatest threat to our future as a country is our long time now increasing governmental dysfunctionality. Focusing on our fiscal outlook, I believe strongly that the debate about job growth and recovery now versus deficit reduction is a false choice and that false choice complicates resolution of our fiscal issues. I speak to people involved in running large companies on a pretty regular basis. And almost always in those discussions, there's expression of the view that our current fiscal situation undermines confidence by creating uncertainty about future policy and by heightening concern about the effectiveness of our political system. A well-constructed fiscal program could promote confidence in the short run and could meet the absolute imperative for a sound fiscal regime for the longer term. That longer-term imperative involves avoiding what will otherwise, I think, be a high probability of severe destabilization at some unpredictable point in time, either in the form of fiscal crisis or in the form of serious inflation. Moreover, there are some analysts who feel that our current unconventional monetary policies may pose similar risks. Again, not now, but at some future time, and possibly heighten our vulnerability. I would define a well-constructed fiscal program as one that stabilizes debt to GDP and perhaps even begins to bring it down over the next 10 years, and that includes critical public investment, balanced funding from increased revenues and cost constraint, and possibly a moderate stimulus. The program would be enacted now and implemented either gradually or with deferral and effective enforcement measures. There are many who would disagree with the views I've just expressed on fiscal matters, and there's certainly many who would disagree with respect to my view, at least, as to the role of government in our economy and our society. But what we should all be able to agree on, and this gets to the heart of our program today and last week, is that our fiscal resources should be used thoughtfully and efficiently in order to get the greatest possible benefit from the resources that we expend and to design revenue measures in terms of critical economic and social criteria. Achieving these objectives on the revenue side and the expenditure side has two dimensions. Number one, reducing the role of politics in allocating resources and designing revenue, and that gets back to this central question of the effectiveness of our government. And number two, designing policies that serve those purposes. In that context, our program will start today with a panel of three former directors of the Congressional Budget Office: Don Marin, director of the Tax Policy Center; Bob Reischauer, distinguished Institute Fellow and President Emeritus of the Urban Institute; and Alice Rivlin, Senior Fellow of the Brookings Institution. The moderator will be Roger Altman, Chairman of Evercore Partners. Then Michael Greenstone, 3M Professor of Environmental Economics at MIT and Director of the Hamilton Project, will provide an overview of the Hamilton Project budget book. And following that, we'll turn to our three panels. The panels are based on 13 briefing papers, but there will not at the panels be presentation of those papers. Instead, we'll have moderated discussions. The first panel deals with improving our safety net, social safety net, and putting it on sound financial footing. Panel will be moderated by Laura Tyson, former chairman, President Clinton's CEA, Council of Economic Advisors, and professor of global management at the Haas School of Business, University of California at Berkeley. The second panel deals with the innovative approaches to that elusive goal of tax reform, and that will be moderated by Bob Greenstein, President of the Center of Budget and Policy Priorities. And the third panel will focus on new sources of revenue and also on making our revenue regime, or trying to optimize our revenue regime in terms of social and economic objectives, and that will be moderated by Michael Greenstone, the director of the Hamilton Project. Let me close my remarks by thanking three people for all that they've done in constructing the intellectual construct for this program and also for putting the program together. Michael Greenstone, who I've already mentioned, is director of the Hamilton Project; Karen Anderson, the managing director of the Hamilton Project; and Adam Looney, the policy director of the Hamilton Project. And again, and let me close with this, let me thank, as I always do at our events, the hardworking and extraordinarily talented staff of the Hamilton Project, which works with tireless effort and tremendous talent to put together these events, and without whom none of our work would get done. Thank you very much, and with that I will turn the panel, or rather the forum, over to Michael? No, Roger, okay, over to Roger Altman.